Oh, actually, I have to say good afternoon and good evening as well, because really we have people joining us from all over the world. In fact, 65 countries to be very precise. So, good morning, good evening, and welcome to the fourth day of the Rise World Summit. And actually, the fifth day, because we had the opening plenary on the first day where we released the Rise values: responsible, inclusive, sustainable, and ecosystem friendly. Values that bind the 7,500 strong community at the Rise World Summit platform right now. Also, co-creating the program of over 150 sessions. Yes, you heard that right. 150 sessions without looking at the fest and tours that also have a lot more going on over there. And this has been co-created by around 100 plus visionary partners who believe in the rise value and of course want to work for a better world and a greener planet. And what better than to talk about at this plenary on ESG, which is, of course, tailored or made for a better world and a greener planet as a goal and a vision for all of us. Good morning once again. This is Kiran Shaiva, the convener of the Rise World Summit, and really keen to get this conversation started on ESG and the wealth economy. And yes, we also are going to have a launch of the PECOWorld, and that you will learn about in just a little bit. With me, I have some amazing, incredible, inspiring people who have set their hearts and their minds, and yes, their hands too, to make sure that we really start achieving the vision of a better world and a greener planet through their initiatives that fit in so beautifully with what ESG should really be all about. And therefore, I'm pleased to introduce Neha Bhaktani, AVP, Tata Capital, Corporate Sustainability. I also have with me, thank you so much, Neha. I also have with me Shalini Sharma, the Director of Crystal. Shalini, welcome. And yes, also Mandar Vaidya, the Director of Shrishti for Resilience, joining us this morning. Hi, Mandar. And finally, I have with me Deepak Nanda, our very own co-convener of the Rise World Summit and the architect of the PECOWorld community, which we will hear about very soon. So let's get started, yeah? Neha, you're right here next to me, so very natural to start there. Um, you know, we talk about ESG, and actually, if you see right now, all over the world, right, ESG has started to face a backlash, right? Is it because there is a difference in the understanding of what ESG is, or is it because we're just not implementing it right? Maybe you can start by, sharing your thoughts about what ESG should really mean and what does it really entail.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me as part of the panel. Actually, that's a very pertinent question and which requires a much deeper discussion. But it's a combination of both. So the backlash is because of both the reasons. One is that the implementation is not right, and also starting from the basics, the understanding of ESG is also missing somewhere in the entire implementation bit. So if I can just take a minute to explain and clarify. ESG as a concept is a more financial analyst driven concept. So it's more pertinent in the BFSI financial sector, where they rate the companies on the ESG performance. Now, the performance rating comes in from the implementation part, which is the sustainability part of the company's side. So ESG and sustainability are basically two different parts of the same coin. So sustainability is something that the corporates would need to implement at their level, looking at the environment parameters, social parameters, and governance parameters, or the economic side of the parameters, and basis the implementation, basis how they perform over, say, 2-3 years and what their goals are for the long term. They get rated on their ESG by financial analyst. So the implementation part really plays a key role in getting rated correctly. Yes.
Okay, great. So of course, like you said, it is very, very financially focused, right?
Yes.
And sorry, and therefore there is a dichotomy there, right? On one hand, we are saying ESG is about creating this better world and greener planet. It is about changing the way business functions so that there is social good, there is common good, right? That we are doing it right as corporate citizens. And yet on the other hand, the focus on finance kind of brings you back to GDP and all the other quarterly reports that forces you to think first about what is my financial standing, right? So is
True.
that
So there is a kind of a lag there. Financial performance is part of ESG, which falls under either the governance parameter or the economic parameter, to be precise. But environment, social, and governance or economic bit involves the entirety of how an organization functions. So, environment would involve your GHG emissions, water footprinting, natural resource management in case if it's a mining company or a cement company, or if it falls under a hard to abate sector, which also becomes very difficult to monitor. Doing life cycle assessments, waste management, that all would fall under your E bucket. Your social bucket would deal with your employee related issues like health, safety, employee benefits, diversity, inclusion, your customer facing issues, product labeling, transparency on how products are used, liability against the product, human rights, which will cut across all the different stakeholders, internal as well as external stakeholders of an organization. Whereas the governance bucket would involve anti-bribery, policies on ethics, your financial stability. So it is actually a very integrated management. Actually, sustainability is an organizing principle basically for any corporate, where they need to be conscious in how the company functions, what kind of products they bring on the table, how much responsibility they are taking for those products while it's being made, while it is being sourced, made, used, and disposed of. So it's the entire life cycle of where the organization wants to play a part. Now, in India, we are seeing stringent forms of regulations that are coming on ESG. And reporting and transparency really boils down because of these regulations that are coming to play. If you look at SEBI's BRSR regulation, 1,000 top companies need to report on their ESG performance. Plus, it is going deeper into their supply chain now. And it's not just supply chain, it's the entire value chain. So 75% of the value chain will be reported and assured at a certain level, so that there is more responsibility for each and every stakeholder, not just the organization, but at tier 3, tier 4 level also for certain industries. So that's why reporting is becoming the main focus of ESG, but actually the entire reporting comes in from how you really implement it.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Maybe that's why we have to start thinking about greenwashing and whitewashing. But I'm going to now move to Shalini. Shalini has helped many, many organizations, businesses across the world, and has been awarded for the kind of work she's done. Phenomenal number of awards, and I would strongly recommend that you please look up her LinkedIn profile. You, in fact, were on Times Square at one time. My goodness, Shalini, you should be telling us a little bit on that as well, right? But at the Rise World Summit, we talk about three major things as part of our discussions across, and that is challenges, capabilities, and then collaboration. Because we believe that if you don't focus first on the challenges, you don't understand the challenges, and then you don't identify the right kind of capabilities that exist around us to address those challenges, there is no way you can collaborate, because then how on what basis are you doing it? And therefore we try to kind of go through our conversations with these three C's in mind when we do it. So I'm going to ask you all the three, in your experience of dealing with corporates and businesses, the kind of services and solutions that you've brought in as an entrepreneur. Now, how have you seen that evolve from the time ESG first started so enthusiastically, so powerfully, that this is the best thing that could happen for business? And now, when we are seeing this backlash from all over the world, over to you.
Thank you, Karen, for having me here. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, world. So the first question you asked me, that why I was on Times Square. So that was an innovation into the circular economy space, which was liked by the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And they wanted to showcase the best solutions on Times Square. They do it whenever they find something very special. So that was the one. But that specific innovation is for developing the digital software for some supply chains. And after that, we knew that we are on the correct path. And so the Crystal is the organization that is doing not only the capacity building and consultancy, but also we are into the designing of the sustainability softwares. And many times these are the customized softwares to solve the specific solutions, of course, within ESG space, because that is our core area of operations. Now, coming to one of the specific question you asked, that why there is so much of focus on financials, and then you asked about the challenges. So if you see the first circular from SEBI, it has very clearly said that this ESG reporting for India-specific formats, especially BRSR Lite and BRSR, they are non-financial report. So they have stressed on it, and they never said that you have to showcase your financial investment into the ESG, any of these pillars. So this is one. Slowly, what we saw here in India, that when any regulation comes, there are many organizations, they start jumping in. And I'm using this word because we have seen this with the in a real time, that what's really happening. That SEBI said that, okay, it's a non-financial reporting, but then the financial institutes came saying that, okay, we will do the training, okay, we will do the social audit course development, and that happened. Then slowly what happened, SEBI has not asked any corporate to rate themselves, they have not asked. They only said that, okay, 150 companies will report this year, 250 will next year, 500 then third year, 1000 will fourth year. This is the progression that has been laid down. Earlier they said top 1000 listed companies it is mandated for them to report, but slowly they said that, okay, the companies are not ready, and because there is a lot of monitoring and the data preparation, background preparation need to be done. That's why they said, okay, the best prepared companies, top 150, whomsoever are already there, should report first. And slowly the progress is there. And that brings to me the second scenario, that many kind of rating agencies, they jumped in, where the government or SEBI has never asked any company to rate themselves and showcase themselves. That. So this is a kind of evolution that's what I'm seeing since after 2018 or so. Coming to the challenges, I should say yes. There are many companies who are really interested, especially if you see the top level CEOs, top management, they are really interested into implementation of environment, social and governance impact assessment and reporting, especially in the format provided for India. But the fact is that their companies are not ready. And in our practical experience, what we have seen, that where the top management is quite enthusiastic about implementation of ESG, the mid management and lower management is completely off to that, because the reason is also there, because they want sometimes there is a willingness and they say they want to prepare, and that's how the time is required. And sometimes there is no willingness, because there's a lot of transparency that comes in with the ESG reporting. A very, very simple example: people don't want to disclose the number of employees on contract and on the permanent basis, you know. And this format, it asks very cleanly, very clearly. Principle 5 will talk about the human rights. Principle 6 will talk about the environmental performances, and very simple. Another example which I'll give you. They say that in Principle 5 that how many fatalities happen during the operations in manufacturing unit. Now, this is something no company want to disclose, or there is another lower version of this. The question is asked that how many, is there any kind of an health or any injury during the operations? Companies, they don't want to disclose it. So that is where the issues come. And for sure, I can say that many companies want to be transparent. Top management will say in such case that, okay, my employee is injured, I want to help them. But mid management will not like to show that the employee was injured during the operation, So these are the kind of challenges which I see that where the streamlining of the whole process from top to bottom is brought in by SEBI's format for ESG reporting in India. But these are kind of the practical challenges. And of course, lastly, I think the data collection, bringing all the data at one place, it takes hell lot of time. And the coordination
Absolutely.
with
It's not
various
easy. It's
teams.
not easy.
So
Yeah.
that's where
So
it
last,
becomes difficult. Yeah.
yeah, thanks, Shalini. So I'll just keep you back for another moment. Last year we had in fact launched the Rise Value Co-Creation Framework. As a framework to help middle managers move from what we call compliance to commitment. Because I think that's what you're pointing out. It's the implementation, and I think Neha also pointed to that. It's not just about reporting, right? It's finally about implementation. And so implementation happens by the management on the ground, right? They oversee it. So how do you bring that commitment and make them understand that there is a value that comes back to them? And so the whole concept of value co-creation. Incidentally, we also launched the Koru toolkit at the opening plenary, which contains all these models and frameworks that we have also worked on. And I know that you also have these wonderful tools that you have created. And so I think we should definitely be collaborating. So one of the solutions maybe to that is for us all to kind of collaborate. But just to kind of go back to that, I wanted to talk to you is that, while you, like you said, data collection, etc., what are some of the tools that you are doing that can help also to create? Because I think more than just the concepts, it's the social behavior that has to change, among middle management, right? So how can we help that happen? Maybe if you can quickly share that with us would be wonderful.
Yes. So what we did now is we developed some cloud-based tools, and you will see Crystal ESG server very soon. It's getting launched, and we have developed some of the tools like circular economy analytics. So we name it as recirculate. So many companies, they struggle to start that, how to know that whether they are circular or when they will be circular. So that's the first analytical tool that we say is recirculate. Then we have also eased out the carbon calculation for the people in very simplified manner. We put up, say, energy intensity calculation, or some of the hybrid energy. People are really struggling that how to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions. So you will be seeing that carbon calculator also on the ESG cloud very soon. The one of very specific initiative that we have taken as an NGO, we are working for the film industry, also for the green transition of film industry. And we have developed an initial tool for screening that how green the film production house is, and we call it as GreenX. So this is one. But for overall ESG, what we have developed is Crystal ESG Cloud, many times the employees, they are struggling for the data collection, or they say that, okay, this much is done, maybe I'm having 50% data, I have to still work for 50% data. So they can work on their own pace on that platform. And also it is completely, when they subscribe to it, it is completely personal to them. So it is not that they don't need to share the data with the consultants also, or many times the companies, they are thinking that, okay, they don't want to disclose their data to the third person. At very, very economic cost, I will say at just 1/50th of the cost of the consultant, you will get the subscription of this, and companies can work on their own pace for their ESG report.
Excellent. Excellent. I think, there was an instantaneous reaction from Neha when you said that. So, yeah, Neha, go ahead.
And the question that Karen asked you was a much deeper question, I thought, which requires a lot of inner reflection also.
I think we need to really have that chat table for a longer one than this plenary for sure, right? Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Shalini. I'm now going to move to Mandar Vaidya, the Director for Shrishti for Resilience. I think the name itself tells you so much, right? Again, about Mandar. And, he's been a humanitarian professional with over 25 years of experience and working across 13 countries and 20 Indian states. So Mandar, I think with that kind of expertise, which, spans public health, emergencies, and most important, of course, disaster risk reduction, I think really we would love to hear from you the view from the ground, because right now the view we are talking from is, and I love your background, and I think the background of all of us comes out so beautifully, right? I think Deepak is waiting for the keeping a blank wall to have something to write, which is the launch of the PECOWorld. So that's perfect. I think, Shalini's got that corporate background look that I think brings in the corporate and the ESG look. And of course, Mandar has the green background, which takes us straight to the ground. So thank you all for setting the stage so beautifully for us. So Mandar, over to you. What do you think? How do, corporates, institutions, and individuals need to think and understand about the world around us in real terms? I think we'd love to hear from you on that. Please, over to you.
Actually, I have been listening to the discussion since beginning, and many questions are coming to my mind as well. And I have recently started to study ESG. Very importantly, I will actually come to the question which is really associated with the climate events happening around, and which are of course related with the energy and carbon footprint on one hand. On the other hand, the impact of extreme climate events. We used to call it as disaster, but if we look at the frequency of the small scale disasters happening, which are not even counted as disasters, and there is no response to that, also have a lot of relationship with the social impact, and it is mostly related with vulnerability. Now, when I think about bringing both together, like climate events and social vulnerability together, what I feel is that when we are talking about wealth creation or all the indicators related with financial impact, we also need to think about investments for non-financial impact as well, which mostly are about reducing vulnerability. That is one part which I feel, and many times it is really point of discussion or point of brainstorming for all of us. Many times when we are thinking, especially corporates or companies are thinking about strengthening their interventions or their contribution to disasters, it is mostly for responses. For disaster risk reduction, there are very few initiatives where corporates are taking responsibility or taking new programs together. So that one part which I feel is a key consideration. When I think about the discussions happening around, especially like, for example, in between we had a lot of lot of posts and news coming in about reducing methane emission. And suddenly everyone was talking about dairy industry, and suddenly everyone was talking about paddy fields and how all these agricultural activities are resulting into methane emission and what can be done about it. Somehow I at that time I used to feel ki why we are not talking about petroleum industry, which is also equally responsible for methane emission. Why we are not talking about say petrol other industries which are using petroleum as the raw material, which is again one of the source of methane emission. So I what I feel is that whenever there is a time for taking stringent kind of regulations or stringent kind of stages for reducing carbon emission, we start from the most easiest or most in our college time they used to call we at that time we used to have frog for dissection. Now they don't give frogs for dissection. And our teacher always used to tell us, why are we taking frog for the first dissection? In latter part they used to give us rat and other animals because frog is the most non-defensial animal. Frog never defenses when you are doing some experiment with him. At the same time, sometimes I feel that all the regulations when it comes to agriculture sector or for the farmers or for the tribals, uh, it is like we are not able to defend ourselves. And the big industries where carbon emission is happening, we have very little kind of regulations, and also we find very loose kind of monitoring system. But when it comes to farmers, when it comes to tribal communities, they are very stringent. So that is one concern which I would like to bring in. So first one is, how do we really bring in factors which will actually help us to calculate non-financial impact on one hand, and on the other hand, how we can come up with balanced kind of regulations for reducing carbon footprint or for reducing emissions. That is second part which I feel. Now the third part is more critical, and many a times corporates or companies are directly not responsible for that. Recent data of Maharashtra indicates that many of the small towns are being affected with the floods. Now they are located in the vicinity of Gram Panchayat, so technically they can't be called as urban floods. But if we look at sociology of that area, if we look at the lifestyle of that area, it is more of a urban. So they are urban floods. Now there are these are small scale climate events which are happening around, and they're increasing in terms of frequency as well as intensity. We all need to think about how do we really, and it is one of the Srishti's key agenda of localization, strengthening localization. So how do we really take this ESG ahead to the localized kind of companies, localized kind of investors as well, so that their contribution also can be monitored or can also be taken into account. So these are initial thoughts which I am getting from this discussion. Thanks,
Great.
Karen, for bringing me in this. It is really a learning experience for me. Thank you.
No, it's a co-learning experience. Let me tell you that, because I think, and I constantly say this, that there is, when one is trying to teach or explain something, to learn. Because the more you try to explain to somebody else something, the more you are understanding deeper what you're saying, but also from the feedback and the response you get. So I think, and we need every perspective, right? I mean, this is what I was saying yesterday at the plenary, that if you want to have a truly transformative vision, we had a plenary with TCS yesterday. If you want to have a truly transformative vision, then you need deeper insights and wider perspectives. So the more different, we may come from very different sectoral approaches, right? But we need all of that to make sure we understand that we're all going in the same direction finally, which is the better world and the greener planet, as I love to say that all the time, right? But Mandar, I also wanted to talk, because we're now going to move into the PECOWorld segment, right? So I also want to talk about a little bit of how you see the PECOWorld, the concept, the PECO model of collective action, and common vision, working for a common good. How do you see that playing out based on your work with us at the PECONet, which is, of course, the UNICEF-led coalition for disaster? Maybe you can share a little bit from that experience before we move to Deepak to actually talk about the PECOWorld launch. Yeah, over to you.
Actually, very inspiring kind of framework which I learned from Karen when I was in PECONet office in Mumbai. See, we at Srishti Consultants, when we started, we are one of the youngest organization in Maharashtra, providing technical support around sustainable development goals and localization resilience. So, one most important thing is that partnerships uh, actually uh, uh, actually are means or are the are partnerships actually foster a lot of coexistence. They were in our sector, social sector, especially NGOs and civil society. Our partnerships are mostly for common actions, and but now when we look at changing situation, and when it is coming to when NGOs are not only NGOs, they are also fostering a lot of local entrepreneurships. On one hand, they are also getting into some productive sectors, maybe small scale, but productive sectors. So uh, now this entrepreneurship, which is being fostered at community level, and uh, and partnerships together, actually are helping us to move ahead. And then when it comes to citizens, they are not only becoming, I will say, uh, customers for those for these products of entrepreneurship. They are also becoming strong proponents of better world, in terms of using eco-friendly products, or in terms of using healthy food items which are produced from organic farms of the farmers. So they're still small scale, but this PICO model will actually guide all of us at grassroots to go ahead. And on one hand, on the other hand, when we are thinking of partnerships, these partnerships can be diverse. Like we at grassroots are always struggling. How do we reach out to, say, some big corporate for assistance, for donation, for help? But when we come together, it becomes easier for us to reach out to many other stakeholders, which otherwise someone sitting in Sinnar, the place where I'm sitting right now, will be very difficult. It will be very difficult for a person, or for a civil society actor, to reach out to someone who is in Mumbai or who is in Delhi. So PICO model definitely, for me, on one hand, is fostering a lot of opportunities for civil society on one hand. On the other hand, that day when we had a lot of intense discussion around it, somehow I have been part of this sector since 1996, and I have seen a lot of transitions happening in NGO sector as well. Somehow we were also becoming very narrow focused, very rigid kind of people who are having a result framework, and then we are having log frame, and then we are chasing our indicators and all. Somewhere the entire process oriented approach in PICO thing is also making us to think what we call traditionally as open space technology, but think creatively, think openly. Acceptance approach is much there. Then fostering multiplicity. So this is what something which inspires me to be part of entire PECONet as well as PICO model as well. And I will definitely be uh, दिमाग चबाऊंगा कैरन का कि हमको इसको आगे किस प्रकार से बढ़ाना है. So that is really encouraging. Thanks, Karen, for bringing all these new
Thank
perspectives.
you, Mandar. I think those were beautiful words, words of encouragement for us, words of making us feel that we are on the right path, because it is supposed to be like the RISE values talk about. It is supposed to be responsible. It is supposed to be inclusive. It's supposed to be definitely sustainable, because we want long-term impact, and more importantly, ecosystem friendly, that brings everybody into it. I think we need ambassadors. We need people who are willing to go out there. And we need both ambassadors, we need warriors, we need, obviously supporters. And so therefore very, very important for us to have everybody into this equation. And so now we come to the final blank wall that's going to unleash the PECOWorld, right, Deepak? So Deepak is the co-convener of the Rise World Summit, and as someone called him yesterday, an alien superpower, because we don't know how he manages to keep all of this together, with of course a wonderful team from Idobro behind him, but of course, yes, leading it, and the PECOWorld architect. I think that's the more key thing that we want to really hear from Deepak over here today. Though he's mostly behind stage, so for a change coming in front. So Deepak, you've been working on the whole PECOWorld for some time now, ever since we started thinking of the whole concept of how do we tech enable this and not just keep it as while we've already going in the reverse direction, right? We've already implemented it. How do we now kind of tech enable it? So maybe you can speak a little bit about that journey, and then of course more about the PECOWorld platform itself. So over to you.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. So I suppose I'm audible. Great. So I'll just start with this whole context about how the either like rather being like 14-year-old organization still works from a point of view of a startup actually, where every day is a new challenge. Everything is kind of more experiment of
Not
sorts.
complaining, right, Deepak?
Not complaining, but
On a
setting the
clever-
context for it, where we are just not set in stone about doing things the way they are supposed to. But Karen just keeps on challenging things about reporting, and whatever's been discussed in the discussion itself till now, like Neha talked about reporting, or Shalini touched upon social behavior, and Mandar alluded to non-financial impact. So all of this has been something that we've been looking at really deeply. And again, for the idea or concept of PICO, which Karen has coined, and I kind of represent in the whole tech enablement format, all of this comes true, where we are looking at how social behavior could be changed, how reporting could be made more seamless through tech, and how we could, have people come together for whatever they're worth rather than what roles they're assigned. To give you a smaller, simpler example, so we'll just play a word association game. So, Karen, if you can just help me around. So, what do you think of when I say entrepreneur? Just one word.
Yeah, it's over to you. So Neha,
Hustler.
Hustler. All right. And when I say about funding,
Um,
okay, maybe
I don't-
Shalini can
yeah,
take that
Shalini
one.
can take that
Shalini, you want to take?
Innovator.
innovator. Great. So the idea for this word association simplicity is that how our brains are linked, how the social behavior acts is that once we see a person as an entrepreneur or as a partner or even as a funder, we think of them as a linear association of that person. That a donor will just give money, a partner will just give us, contacts, entrepreneur would just give us solutions. But how do you go beyond that? So that is what the whole approach of PICO is in simpler terms. And we've had another conversation with Sherry Blair on it, how their entrepreneurs could think beyond just these linear roles to expand their networks. That is where the experiment of MahaPicoNet happened, where we deployed the Pico model during the disasters in Maharashtra, across Maharashtra, and even during COVID times. And we expanded the network to where right now in Maharashtra, I think around 180 NGOs is what we're managing under the network itself. And again, another example of that network has been the Rise World Summit, which again, for the past 3 years, I've been co-leading with Karen. And it's just been scaling and doubling in numbers each year, where from last to last year was 2,500 people. Last year was some 5,000, 6,000 people. This year it's touching around 10,000 by the end of tomorrow, probably. So it just goes to say that how if you have a concept in place and do not associate people with the hierarchy they are supposed to be, and go beyond the roles that people can actually contribute to, is when you can further utilize their capabilities. So that is where the whole PICO model comes into play. How the approach works is that it has these three major personas. So one being P stands for partners. So anyone who can contribute in terms of their network or any linkages that they can create. So those would be the partners as a persona. Or the second one would be entrepreneurs, which is the E. So these will be the people who come up with solutions or innovations or innovative ideas. So anyone who could do that. And then third one is citizens. So C is for citizens, which would be these individuals who can contribute in terms of their time, talent, or any resources that they can bring on the table. So these would be even the volunteers. So even the reason why I really resonate with the concept of PICO is because in these 4 or 5 years that I've been working in the space, either in the social sector or the media organization that I was a part of, I've seen that how organizations do not utilize a person's potential. So if you see a student, the student is just being looked as a attendee. They are not brought onto stage. Their capabilities are not used. If you see someone who can just share an inspirational story, it's just that. Beyond that, they are not a kind of use for someone. So that is where the PICO model also looks at how the person can be utilized, and that's where I think I again align with that. And then the final O part of it is ownership, where all these partners, entrepreneurs, and citizens, when they come together and own a particular challenge, is when everyone can contribute together and collectively to creating a solution for that problem. So that is again what the PICO model is simply. Just to kind of go now on to the whole platform part of it. So that is what we've been working last year with JP Morgan as in CSR or employee engagement activity of theirs, where rather employee volunteering, where they helped us create a tech backend of this whole PICO model into a more, I would say, matrix driven format, where now people could create a profile, and after answering a simple set of questions, they'll be assigned percentages of how much of their persona is of a partner. So Mandar could be a partner, Mandar could also be an entrepreneur, Mandar could also be a citizen. So he could contribute in all these three ways. So it makes you think beyond just the role of an NGO. So Shalini could also be like an entrepreneur. She could also give ideas, but she might as well also be a citizen. So she could also give her time as well to some NGOs and organizations. So it just takes you beyond whatever role you have. And then again, that is the beginning of it. Then it expands on to hosting events and sessions like these. So Rise World Summit, like I said, is an experiment. We've been doing it. So how do we take all these experimentation and learnings from that to the platform now? So we'll have multiple sessions on it. We'll have events on it. The community will be able to interact with themselves. So again, the Rise platform right now, you see the Rise World Summit. Each of you can see all those 8,000 people. So they are just not a number on a session. Those are real people. You can see their profiles, you can interact with them. Similarly, the PICO community would also be in a similar fashion available for everyone to interact with the other people who are on the platform, attend those events, training sessions, capacity building, networking events, and then again have conversations, ideation sessions, and look at even other resources and knowledge products that are shared across. And how did we get to this is, again, so last year again JP Morgan helped us develop the back end of it, but simultaneously we've been running smaller experiments with MahaPicoNet. Right now the network we are managing for Maharashtra disaster response, we have created a smaller community for NGOs, all those 180 NGOs, to connect within each other. So, a private network of that. We also have launched last year a community for entrepreneurs, which we had a showcase on Rise World Summit, I think day before yesterday. So that's for entrepreneurs to connect. Another smaller community we've built is for teachers and students to connect, and that is again what we're running. So a lot of these smaller communities have been built, and the Rise World, the PECOWorld community will be like a larger cohort of all these coming together, and then kind of taking it forward in a better manner and a, I think, wider impact. And that's where I think where Mandar also left off, that we all are doing great things individually, but not collectivizing our efforts. And that's where the theme also for the Rise World Summit this year has been pushing everyone to think different, but act together, as I say. So yeah, I think that's where I'll leave off. And over to you, Carol.
Great. Thank you so much, Deepak, for all the hard work and making this happen and make it a reality. Because while conceptually we know thought of it many years and we've been using it for many years, and of course practically we have applied it to many of our programs. But most important and most visible was of course the UNICEF convening during the pandemic when we started this, and I think UNICEF loved the concept so much that we actually called the coalition, because when we were thinking what do we call the coalition, we started with 55 partners and we said what should we call this, and then when I explained the concept of how we are bringing it together, we said let's put that name. So Maha Pico Net, so it was Maha was obviously for Maharashtra, Pico was the model, and then Net is the network, right? So that was a beautiful way for us to get validation also. And most important is, during the pandemic, many people formed coalitions and came together, and fantastic work was done by incredible people, right? And the beauty of it is, if you remember, and I know no one is ever going to forget the pandemic, is that none of us knew who the other person really was. When we called for help, when we asked for help, we didn't think about, oh, what's your designation? Where do you work? Are you a corporate person? Are you an NGO? People forgot everything. The only thing they remembered is we need help, and am I in a position to help or not? Can I do something here or not? And it did not matter who you were, where you were, or what you were. And that's what the PICO is about. It's not about the profile. It's not about you being a government official, you being a civil society member, you being private sector, corporate, or you being, an NGO. It is simply human beings understanding that we have one world and we need to respond and help wherever we can and do our bit, right? Do our bit. So building your ecosystem around you is more about understanding what is required and how can we contribute and what can we do. And so when you understand those three elements of the PICO, nothing else matters. And that's really where it came from. And that just strengthened my belief. And so what happened is, unfortunately, after the pandemic, most of these coalitions stopped, right? Either they pivoted into something else or they disbanded, right? Which means a loss of so much of wonderful goodwill, a loss of so much of knowledge that was created that time, a loss of so much of processes that were put in place. So how do we really retain and maintain? And that's why we were really pleased that the Mahapiconet continued. In fact, from that original 55 partners, we are now, like Deepak said, 180 partners that cover every district of Maharashtra. So, which is a very strong validation that if you can put aside your I am this badge kind of thing and instead say that, we are here together to be part of this collective movement, collective ownership, right? To do something and get something right. I mean, magic can happen. I mean, that's my belief at any case. And I have this wonderful t-shirt that says, I believe in miracles. So totally believe in that one. So thanks, Deepak, for taking us through that. I think, I would love to we are coming to the end of this plenary. So I do want to get some feedback and thoughts. Mandar has, of course, said about the PICO. So maybe Neha and Shalini, would you all like to say? Neha, maybe because the audio is already on. Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful concept where, different players in the society are coming together, getting their resources together to help the society. So it's from the society for the society. And I think that's a wonderful concept where you're creating in-kind wealth.
Yes.
Right? And it comes in from the strength of people to help others, and I think that's really commendable that the coalition has moved beyond COVID, and it has expanded and has come together. I would also like to mention that because COVID wasn't it's like there are two different worlds. There's a pre-COVID and there's a post-COVID world. But what Mandar mentioned during his conversation also was disasters. Yes, they are happening very, very frequently, and we need to be very conscious of the fact that everybody does need to contribute during those times. and these will happen, and it will affect us on a day-to-day basis because of the climate change, because of not just gradual changes, but these very sudden chaotic changes that are happening in the world. And we need to be very conscious of the fact that even though some people in the world do have a lot of resources available, most of the people in the world do not have those resources available, or they don't have that resilience, and they are very vulnerable to such situations. So how do we really come together to ensure that they are prepared, uh, because you can't predict all of these things. So how do we come together to help and make sure that they are prepared for such situations? They know what to do, whom to contact at such a time, and this is not just from ESG perspective, but even from a CSR perspective, when the companies are pulling in their resources and doing community and development work, which then kind of leads to nation building. That's the philosophy of on what Tata Group works as well. So we have a lot of focus on disaster management. There is a Tata Group, one Tata response that comes into play whenever such a disaster happens in any part of the world. In fact, there's a team that drives and gets the resources into place, and there are different stages that we look at. One is the first stage, which is just relief and getting the material there, and then there is a rehabilitation stage also. So overall, there are individuals and champions that are chosen for disaster management. They are trained on that, and they can be called anywhere, anytime when such a disaster hits. So the Tata Group then pulls in their people resource, which is the strength of the group, the funds that come in from not just the companies but also employees, where they give 1 day of 1 day salary for such things, and also the products and the resources that are available, which the Tata Group makes. So every bit of it kind of comes together into play, where the disaster is then managed at the immediate stage of relief and material provision, and also rehabilitation post the state. So realizing that what you have available in different forms of it, I think that's really key in getting everything rolled out.
Great. Thanks so much. I think definitely, 2, 3 keywords that you use, which I'll come back to. I think, it's a VUCA world out there, and peacetime preparedness, which is a common thought, which we and Mandar can definitely talk to that as well. So, like I said, we are coming really to the end, but very quickly, Shalini and Mandar, I would like to have a last word from you all, both on the PECOWorld and also what Neha just shared. So, Shalini, over to you.
So, Karen, I would like to congratulate you and your team members to bringing up for designing this MahaPecoNet, and also as a tuning scholar, and during COVID also we have seen quite a lot of work being done by your organization. I think that network has really supported a lot for the people who were in need at that point of time. So I think we would like to see more of such networks that bring some positive social impact. And for sure, congratulations once again to all of you.
Thank you so much, Shalini. I know I must say a special thanks to Shalini, because she has been unwell, but still agreed to do this, so thank you so much. Of course, looking at you, nobody will realize that you're unwell, Shalini, but I know how long you've been battling, your problem, and really thank you very much for joining us. Really, truly appreciate it. Yeah. Mandar, over to you. Yeah. Thank you.
Actually, it was really a very enriching kind of discussion we had, and I would like to be part of such discussions in future, because they help my other colleagues, other CSOs which are working. So I will be definitely sharing all these learning from here, and so thanks to Deepak as well for organizing all these things, and thanks to Karen for bringing all people together.
Great.
This was Really great
Thank you,
experience.
Mandar. You are definitely going to be a very core part of our work moving forward in the PECONet, as well as with other work that we do with the community as Rise Infinity Foundation, because people more or less know IDOBRO, but we also have a foundation. We are a hybrid organization, so very, very happy to have that. Deepak has dropped out by mistake, but anyway, no problem. We are coming to the end. As I said, I just want to maybe close with this last couple of thoughts. One is, we have titled this the ESG and the wealth economy, because I think more and more we need to think of the wealth economy. We need to go with that in mind rather than looking at GDP and these quarterly reports and financial performance, and look at what is the impact on the capital that we bring. Because as I always keep saying, what you value is the capital you create, right? So if you value people, you'll create human capital. If you value communities, you're going to create social capital. If you value your environment, you're going to create natural capital, right? So when you value something, you will automatically build assets around that. And that's really what we want to encourage everybody to think about from this plenary today. And of course, there are so many sessions happening right through the day. Please do log in. Please do keep checking the agenda. And believe me, there are sessions being added on the fly, because as people keep understanding the platform, and because it's no longer an event, the Rise World Summit has moved from being an event when it got started, 11 years ago, to becoming this unconference ecosystem, when we were doing the last physical one, which happened at IIT Bombay. And now it has become a platform. I mean, it has a life of its own. So please, anyone who's interested in being a part of the Rise World Summit, wants to share knowledge, wants to inspire people with what they do, want to explore what else can be happening, and finally, of course, want to take action and collaborate, this is the platform for you. So don't forget to join. We still have one more day to go tomorrow, and we'll be then having a plenary on diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is the final day for that. And also, of course, we will have the closing plenary where we're going to have the Rise Awards that will be presented. And we have some very special people who are going to be awarded this year. So please, please do join us for that. And last but not the least, I think I just want to close by saying, you mentioned about preparedness, right? And we have a term, and Mandarik would have spoken to that if we had the time. Peacetime preparedness. What do you do? Yes, disaster risk and management and relief and response, all that is fine, but we need to prepare for disasters, and we call that peacetime preparedness. And that's why I always say peace is not this concept, this esoteric concept of meditation alone. I mean, yes, it's good to do meditation and all of that, but peace, and neither is peace this drastic other end of talking about war and conflict, right? Peace is something we all want on a daily basis. Peace is that harmonious coexistence with yourself, with people around you, with nature, and between nature, because unfortunately, human intervention is leading to conflict within nature as well, right? Because that is what is happening. So, how do we bring peace as this, peace as this practical everyday element in our lives, which you spoke about, stability, that allows us to have this peaceful environment? Because for me, as I always keep saying, peace is the ultimate indicator of development and progress. You can have the most beautiful country in the world and still have war. You can have the most progressive society and still have suicides. And you can have the most, integrated living and still be disconnected from the rest of the world, right? That is not one world. And we all need to dream towards one world. And for that, I wish that we bring peace as the central part of all our lives, so that we can have peace for ourselves and peace for all. Thank you once again for joining us at this plenary. Keep watching, keep moving, and keep working together for a better world and a greener planet. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm